Hey guys, it's Summer Rayne from Homestead, Brooklyn, and for this episode we're going to learn how to propagate different succulents. So there's going to be three ways that I'm going to show you. One is through a leaf cutting. The second way would be through the kalanchoes, which actually produce their own offspring, pretty handy. And the final way is actually just being able to cut the stems. Quite possibly one of the easiest ways is actually through a leaf cutting. And what I mean by a leaf cutting is that you want a really fresh succulent leaf. If your succulent is looking a little dry or desiccated and you're desperate to try to propagate it, don't use the leaves that are dried or desiccated, because I'll give you an example, it's just not going to propagate itself. But what you want to do is cut it off at the base. You could either take a sharp knife or you could gently tug at it and turn it within your fingers until it actually pops off. You'll notice that it'll have a little bit of, it'll be quite juicy at the top. What you'll want to do is have it callus over. And what I mean by callusing over is it actually just dries off, sort of similar if you had a fresh cut and then you have a scab over it. That's what's going to happen to the succulent leaf. Once it starts to callus over, you're going to see that it starts to put out little rootlets and even sometimes little leaflets. So I have different types of leaves in different stages of progression. And I will oftentimes leave them on a tray, or I'll just take, this is a little spice jar that I turned into a place where I put my extra succulent leaves. And I might mist it over once or twice, but I won't mist it over too much, because if you put a little bit of too much water on the soil, it could actually then rot, and you don't want that to happen. So I just broke off this one, and you could see here that it is not a clean break. So I didn't get it close enough to the stem. So I could let this one callus over, but I would be hard pressed to see if this one would actually propagate itself. So one of my favorite succulents are kalanchoes. So it's a type of genus that's called Mother of Thousands. And the reason why it's called Mother of Thousands is because if you look closely around the leaf margins, which are oftentimes zigzagged, they'll start to produce these little quote-unquote pups, which are complete replicas of their mother. And so this is an asexual reproduction. And you could see they just start to propagate all along the leaf margins. And they are equipped already with these little rootlets, and they just fall into the soil. And if they fall into a soil and they have the right kind of conditions, which pretty much any kind of condition is the right kind of condition for a kalanchoe if you're giving it enough sunlight and a little bit of moisture from time to time. And those little guys will grow up just to be like their parents. So you can see I have some kalanchoes here and also here. Of course, this kalanchoe and this graptopetalum, which is also called leather petal for the way that it looks, is often quite leggy. So what I mean by leggy is you could imagine it starts to search for light. So the light maybe wasn't as strong, or the window might have been a little bit higher up. So it's putting all its growth hormones in order to be able to get its leaves up to where the sun is. So in this case, you could always, if you don't like the look of this kind of stocky kalanchoe or this graptopetalum, you could actually cut off the top of it, let it callus over in a very similar way that you did with the little leaves here. And after a couple days to maybe a week, you could place it right back into the soil, and it'll grow from the rosette. One of the things that you want to take into consideration before you cut any plant or a succulent even is you'll want to sanitize your shears. So you could get a clean knife, or in this case I have my little clippers here. And the best way to sanitize is just through isopropyl alcohol. So you could get a cotton swab or a towel or anything along those lines, and just take the shears and whatever part you're going to cut, you're just going to clean off just like that. And that way you're not going to have any kind of disease agents or bacteria or viruses that you'll be passing on to the plant itself. So what we'll want to do is take a piece right below the node of where you think you want to cut it, and where you'd like to see it callus over. So I don't mind them too leggy, so I'm not gonna cut them right below the leaf, but I'll cut them right around here. So now that I've cut this, I'm going to lay it down here, and it'll just callus over after a couple days. And once it calluses over, you could stick it right back into the soil. But you'll notice that we have this long stem here, and what I'll do is end up cutting this right at the base. Just like that. And if you're lucky, you might have some growth on the top of that as well. But otherwise, just let it linger at the base, and the kalanchoe will regenerate very easily. So hopefully that is really helpful for you in learning how to propagate succulents. Remember, start with very good leaves, and also let them callus over if you're cutting them, because otherwise they might actually rot if you put them directly into the soil. If you haven't yet, like Homestead Brooklyn here on YouTube, or you can follow along on Instagram at Homestead Brooklyn. Thanks a lot. Bye.